let us kick this off, Cash, with our MVP picks. And Cash and I, for all of these awards, picked two players or coaches or executives. We had a 2-person ballot. And so I'll start with you, Cash. What did you have on your ballot for MVP?
I finally made the switch. I was Giannis, Team Giannis all year, and I still think he's having just an unbelievable season.
You went with Harden.
I've been swayed by James Harden, man.
Okay.
I think he's having, and you can look at it like in terms of individual points per 100 possessions, he literally is having the most prolific season ever offensively. It is not fathomable what he does, how efficiently he scores at that usage rate because of his ability to get to the line, how efficiently he operates the Rockets offense even when it's not him shooting it because of the looks that he gets his teammates. And I understand that Giannis is he's obviously the more complete player when you factor in defense, but James Harden, actually a really good post defender. It's something I've talked about before, and he gets switched on to big guys a lot because of how switch happy the Rockets are, and he holds his own. He's not a great defender, but what he's doing offensively and how he resurrected that team. It's something when the Rockets were in Toronto to play the Raptors, and I asked Mike D'Antoni about it, and he straight up said, he's like, we were dead, and James Harden lifted us off the mat. And that's kind of the MVP argument for James Harden, that this was a team that was in 14th place in the Western Conference, and that was before Chris Paul got hurt and before Clint Capella went down. And through the singular brilliance of James Harden, they're now up to 3rd in the West. They're back to looking like the biggest threat to the Warriors, at least in the West. I just don't know what else you can say about it. And again, none of this is even taking away from Giannis, because I've got nothing against Giannis' argument as being the best player on a juggernaut of a team. But
if Harden wins, it won't be because Giannis lost the award. It'll be because
Harden averaged like 37 points a game on solid efficiency and took a team that had, honestly, you can look at the rest of that roster, especially when you consider the injuries they had, and say they had no business to even make the playoffs in the West this year. Or if they did, they should have scraped to get in, let alone they're going to win like 55.
I'll say this. That stretch where Paul was injured and Capella was injured, I mean, Gordon even was in and out of the lineup, that should have sunk them. Not out of the playoffs necessarily, but like they should probably be about where the Thunder are right now, which is staring at a potential first-round matchup against the Warriors. And the difference between being in that place and being in a place where you're going to open with home court and probably going to avoid the Warriors until the conference finals is as significant, I think, as being in or out of the playoffs if you're going to be a first round out.
Agreed.
So I definitely think that deserves a ton of credit. I mean, 40.5% usage and 61.5% true shooting. So if you're taking that large a share of the offense and converting it into points at that rate, I mean, that you're an offense unto yourself. And I think ultimately, first of all, I will say I picked Giannis. I've ridden with him all season, and I just couldn't move him out of that top spot. But to piggyback on your argument for Harden, I mean, Giannis has made everybody around him better. He has made that whole system work because it revolves around him. But in a sense, like, he is still dependent on the players around him to make their shots, to space the floor for him. And Harden simply does not need that. He really is an offense unto himself. It doesn't really matter who you surround him with. He is going to be able to give you an elite offense just by virtue of being on the floor. And ultimately, you know, Giannis's defense put him over the top for me. But I also have to say, I think offense is more important than defense. So if you wanted to make the argument for Harden, I would not quibble with it. I just think Giannis's two-way impact has been completely undeniable to me. And where he has taken this Bucks team, I mean, it's one thing to keep a team afloat or to elevate the talent around you. I mean, we're talking about a team that has been number one in the NBA all season. Like, from the very first game, this team has not lost its grip on the mantle of best team in the NBA.
And as a juggernaut, again, like wrecking team.
One of the best regular season teams ever. And I really like the way that this team is assembled. I think they are very well coached. And I think you will see as we go along down our awards, there will be other Bucks in contention for these awards. But I think it starts with Giannis, and he deserves by far the most credit for making it happen. And I mean, just like the leap that he has made in terms of playmaking, like if you look at per 100 possessions, his assist rate is basically on a par with Harden's. And
which is pretty absurd.
It's absurd. And look, like I understand, yeah, like he benefits from the spacing around him. But if a team decides to just like pack the paint, Giannis is still going to score. Like he is completely unstoppable as a scorer. And defensively, I mean, I can't say it enough, but he is just such a ridiculous disruptor. And again, for the team that has the number one defense in all of basketball, this isn't just somebody who, closes the gap on Harden with his defense. I mean, there is a huge, huge gap there. And I think that, to me, ultimately made the difference. So I picked him as my MVP. I put Harden second, but I wouldn't quibble either way. It's just that close.
Yeah, and the one thing I will mention, I think you brought up a good point about offense actually being more important than defense. Look, as I'm sure you have, I've been a two-way guy in terms of analyzing basketball, as long as I can remember. It's why 5 years ago I was getting in arguments at theScore's offices with people about how I thought Paul George at the time was already better than Carmelo Anthony because of how much defense mattered, and I still stand by that. But
how long ago was this?
This was the 2012-13 season.
Oh, okay.
Going into the series when the Knicks played the Pacers.
Right.
It was like around, George was like just breaking out, and Melo obviously was like in the MVP running, so it was kind of a contrarian stake, but I still stand by it. But especially in the new NBA, I think it is slanting more offense. And if you look at the championship profiles of recent champions, it's really starting to skew offensively when you look at the metrics. And just on that note, when James Harden's on the court this season, the Rockets score like the most efficient offense of all time. When he's off the court, they would rank 26th this season. So obviously, you don't want to put everything on on-off numbers, and the defensive numbers aren't as kind to him. But that just put that in perspective.
Yeah, we'll put this in perspective too. So for the season, according to Basketball Reference, which I know the stats are different.
Yeah,
for
I was going
sites,
by NBA.com
but
now.
per Basketball Reference, this year's Rockets have the 8th best offensive rating of all time, and consider that for long stretches of this season, their second best player was, I don't know, Daniel House,
maybe PJ
Austin
Tucker.
Rivers. Like, that's insane. And I don't know, I'm almost talking myself into Harden as we're having this conversation, but no, I will stick with my guns and go with Giannis just because he has also had an absolutely ridiculous season. But I mean, let's just give credit to these two guys who have had two of the most brilliant seasons that we've seen in a really long time, and a truly inspiring and engaging MVP race right down to the finish.